So this week coming up, we're in John chapters 9 and 10. It's another long section, so it'll be worthwhile reading ahead if you possibly can, and using the workbook notes to help you to do that. But John chapters 9 and 10 represents the end of the second big section of John, from chapter 5 through to chapter 10. It's a section that started with a sign miracle that takes place on the Sabbath. And it ends in chapter 9 with a sign miracle that takes place on the Sabbath. And as hopefully we're used to by now, we realise these sign miracles are signposts. They point beyond themselves, both in how John retells them, but then significantly in how Jesus explains them. And this whole section from John 5 through to John 10, loaded up as it is with these extended dialogues between Jesus and the Jews. The whole section is designed to show us that Jesus really is the Christ, and to do that through the lens of the Old Testament. Like I say, these two signs at the beginning and end are both on the Sabbath day, a day that speaks of God's healing and of his restoration and of his ultimate rest. And both miracles point in that direction. But in the meantime, we've had Jesus doing things on the Passover in John chapter 6 and in the Feast of Booths in John chapter 7, two prominent Old Testament festivals that Jesus fulfills in everything that he does. And all the way along, the book of Exodus has been very prominent in the way John's told his stories, the images of that foundational chapter of the Bible explaining exactly who Jesus is and how he now defines the life of the new Israel. You see, the whole section has been screaming out all along, Jesus really is the Christ. He's God's Son come into the world to bring people back to God, to make the way to heaven open. The problem seems to be that however loud Jesus screams through his miracles and his words, the people seem almost deaf to the reality. Or more pertinent perhaps for this week, the more they seem blind to this reality. It's as though every time Jesus speaks about heavenly realities, eternal realities, they seem unable to see beyond this world. Jesus says, I'm the one who brings bread from heaven, and they just look for the bread that comes from earth. Jesus speaks about teaching that comes from heaven, and they realise he's or conclude he's simply the teacher who comes from Nazareth. They just can't get it. They can't see where he's come from, that is heaven. They can't see where he's going to, that is heaven, because they can't see beyond. They are blind. And in some cases, in a very hostile way. Last week's section, chapter 8, ended up with them planning to kill him, just as they were at the beginning of the section in chapter 7. But in the middle of last week's section, you saw Jesus say two things about himself. First of all, he promised that he would pour out his Spirit one day, like water in the wilderness. And he made that great declaration, I am the light of the world, one of his great I am sayings. Well, now the question we're asking is, Jesus encounters a blind man on the Sabbath. The question we're asking is this: is the light bright enough that it might even be able to open the eyes of the spiritually blind? And how are people going to respond when he does exactly that?